From winning the double to being eliminated from the Champions League by Arsenal.
The historical kings of European football are out.
Hay que aceptarlo también porque en los dos partidos creo que Arsenal ha sido mejor que nosotros.
From being considered the heir to Ronaldo to having more red cards than free kicks.
For one of the worst challenges I can remember for a long time.
From saying that he's gonna do it 10 times more to not doing anything at all.
Vinícius Jr. And it's high! Another window!
Wow.
Real Madrid are a story on their own. When they added Mbappé, a player who was considered one of, if not the best player in the world, to a team that had won the Champions League and La Liga, everyone thought Madrid were going to take over the world.
This is a Real Madrid team that have just won La Liga at a canter, they've just won the Champions League, now they're signing arguably the best player in the world.
With Barca struggling at the time, Madrid dominance seemed inevitable.
You do need the Barcelona-Real Madrid rivalry to be a real rivalry and not to become too one-sided. I just wonder whether Mbappé is tilting the balance.
Yet now, it's the exact opposite. So why exactly is a team as star-studded as Real Madrid not living up to expectation?
Well, if this clicks, they're going to win the league, going to win the Champions League, but they just cannot harness that kind of performance and put it into a 90 minutes and then a consistent run of games.
To anyone that has followed the history of Real Madrid, it won't actually come as a surprise that the third edition of the Galácticos are underperforming. They are actually experiencing similar problems to the first two generations of Galácticos before them. The first set of Galácticos were formed between 2000 and 2006. Perez had won the presidency due to his promise of an aggressive transfer policy where he would get the best and biggest signing. Well, he fulfilled that promise, signing Luis Figo from rivals Barcelona. It was a record-breaking transfer and a statement signing. Stealing the best player from your arch rivals sends a message to the entire world of football. A year later, Perez broke the transfer record again, signing Zidane from Juventus for 75 million euros. Now, two big signings in 2 years? That's pretty fine. It's actually sustainable. You could even argue that the Galácticos hadn't even started yet because it was just two guys. Madrid ended up winning La Liga in 2001 and 2003. They also won the Champions League in 2002 with Perez's marquee signing Zidane scoring the winning goal in the final. But see, this is where the problems began. Perez wanted more star power, bigger names. So despite winning the league and the Champions League, he brought David Beckham from Manchester United. Beckham was very good, a terrific player, but there were concerns that he was actually more famous for his stuff off the pitch than his performances on it, especially at that stage of Beckham's career. Keep in mind too, the summer before in 2002, Madrid had signed R9. The Brazilian was dealing with persistent injuries and fitness issues, but still ended up as La Liga's top goal scorer when Madrid became champions in 2003. But the bigger issue was that Madrid already had a great right winger. They had Figo, so the spaces that Beckham thrived in, well, that was the exact same spaces that Figo liked to occupy. To many, it was a signing that made more sense for commercial and revenue purposes than footballing reasons. And these people were right. Two high-profile players in the same position caused one of them to be forced to be played out of position. Sound familiar? When Beckham was on the right, Figo would have to play on the left or down the middle. When Figo was on the right, Beckham would have to play as a central midfielder. On top of that, Beckham's arrival led to the departure of Makelele. He was one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, but Perez didn't want to raise his salary because he did not want to pay large wages for a defensive player. Guess winning the ball back and putting a crunching tackle wasn't sexy enough for Perez. Well, as you can imagine, despite the star power the club had, they failed to win any trophies for the next 3 seasons because there was no balance. Their performances in La Liga suffered, with the Galácticos being outshone by Ronaldinho and Eto'o and Barca. Funny enough, Real Madrid owned 50% of the contract that Eto'o had signed with Mallorca. They had the ability to sign him before anyone else if Eto'o chose to leave Mallorca. Yet Perez sold these rights in 2004 because he felt that Madrid already had the two best strikers in the league, in Raul and R9. Now, he wasn't wrong technically, but then it didn't really make sense because he ended up signing Michael Owen that summer. I mean, it was classic Perez. All he cared about was the bigger names. There were even reports that Carlos Queiroz, the coach at the time, was forced to pick the star players regardless of form due to Perez's instructions. Anyways, Perez ended up messing up because Eto'o would later join Barcelona and help them win the 2005, 2006, and 2009 La Liga titles, as well as the 2006 and 2009 Champions League titles. Meanwhile, Michael Owen, the alternative signing to Eto'o, left after 1 season after failing to secure a starting spot at Real. Then eventually, when Beckham left to join the MLS, it was seen as the official end to the first version of the Galácticos. Beckham was the last of the big four to move on, with Figo having joined Inter Milan 2 seasons prior, Zidane retiring after the 2006 World Cup, and Ronaldo moving to AC Milan half a season before Beckham's departure. An unsuccessful era, especially given the expectations, the amount of money spent, and the star power, but some similar issues to the third version of the Galacticos we're seeing now. The Mbappé signing reminds me a little of the Beckham signing. Not because Mbappé was signed purely for marketing reasons like Beckham was, but the signing definitely didn't make a whole lot of sense from a footballing perspective. Madrid already had arguably the best left winger in the world at the time in Vinny. Now of course the best version of Mbappé is much better than the best version of Vinny, but it still didn't make sense to get a player who is at his best occupying similar spaces as your other best player. Do you guys remember the beginning of the 2024-2025 season where it would show the heat map and Rodrigo, Mbappé, and Vinny were all having an orgy on the left hand side? It wasn't working. Now as the season went by, Mbappé adjusted to the number 9 role. In fact, you can argue that even in an underwhelming season for the team as a whole, he was Madrid's best player, the top goal scorer, second in big chances created. But what has happened is his individual brilliance has come at the cost of the team as a whole playing worse. Now I think most Madrid fans would even tell you that at their best, Madrid aren't necessarily playing the best football. How many times have we seen them get outplayed then end up getting a win? That's what they're most famous for, pulling out a result when it all seemed lost. It's happened so many times that you can no longer call it luck. But at least in 2024 when they won the double, in that diamond setup, they played a lot better than what we have seen. I mean, think about it. These guys won La Liga and the Champions League. They had scored the most goals in Spain, while at the same time conceding the least amount of goals. Bellingham, as the head of the 4-4-2 diamond, was phenomenal. His link up with Vinny was almost at the same level as Benzema and Vinny. There's a reason Madrid had 2 of their guys on the podium for the Ballon d'Or. But ever since Mbappé joined, that fluidity isn't there anymore. Now, funny enough, the fluidity was there for a bit when Vinny was suspended. Vinny, in typical fashion, lost his head and got a red card, then got suspended because he tried to fight the ref. You know you're in the wrong when Rudiger is the one calming you down. Anyways, in that short period of time when Vinny was out, Rodrigo went on the left with Mbappé up top and Brahim Diaz on the right, and it was working. They beat Las Palmas 4-1, slapped Real Valladolid with Mbappé getting a hat-trick. Now I know these are not the best teams in La Liga, but at least Madrid were playing fluid football and they were getting the best out of their new guy. When Vinny was out with a muscle injury, Madrid also beat Getafe 2-0, which is no easy task by the way. Those guys played to not lose rather than to win. They also beat Girona 3-0. Now again, this could have just been a coincidence. After all, in the beginning of the season, Vinny was getting goals and assists for fun, with Madrid winning the majority of their games. It was actually Vinny that was playing well and Mbappé being the one low on confidence. The problem was the fact that when Vinny came back from suspension, he was awful. He tweeted that he will do it 10 times more, and then did nothing. Yes, Vinny, 10 times 0 is still 0. At one point, he had 0 dribbles completed across 2 matches in a row. Not only have Madrid gone worse attacking wise, they have also gone far worse defensively. It doesn't help that the guys up front don't want to press. Mbappé at times seemingly just doesn't want to run. We know he isn't a natural 9, but that doesn't excuse his lack of movement. The guy is in his prime and walking around, not pressing, scratching his balls. Look at this stat that tracked how many kilometers per 90 players are running in the Champions League, and Mbappé is at the bottom. Vinny is towards the bottom too, which is not a great look.
On the ball, also he has to do way more, a run in behind when the team is high. Whether you're a winger, whether you're a 9 or whether you're a 10 deep, you can make a run.
Here are the running stats from the quarterfinals. This is inexcusable for 2 guys who are incredibly young and supposed to be at their peak athletically. Mbappe's lack of runs have forced Bellingham to make the runs that he won't, which is not good because it puts too much responsibility on Bellingham's shoulders.
More often than not, I won't say always, but more often than not, Bellingham trying to make the run, trying to make the team play, running in behind, as that's him again trying to break the line. That's your 9. That's your 10. Again, who's going to make the run in behind? Who's going to try to go? It's him. It's Bellingham going, not your number 9.
It's not sustainable for him to do his normal role as a central midfielder and make Mbappe's runs for him. In fact, Bellingham is probably the guy that has been frustrated the most. He went from being in all the headlines, scoring bangers weekly, being, in many people's eyes, the best player in the world. But ever since Donatello arrived, he's been doing double the work with half the recognition. Cause anyone that watches Madrid will tell you, Jude has still been fantastic, but his stats took a dip in the beginning of the season because he was pushed further back in midfield. Ancelotti played a traditional 4-3-3 and Bellingham was asked to do more of the defensive work. Madrid ended up finding more success using a 4-2-3-1 with Bellingham right in behind Mbappé. But again, out of possession, Bellingham is forced to go to the left mid spot, and Madrid transitioned into a 4-4-2. So most games, the poor guy is just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to cover for the two guys up front who are just walking around sniffing their butt. Now Mbappé isn't the only issue with this team. The other issue Madrid are facing is something similar to what happened to the second version of the Galácticos. Initially, with the second version of the Galácticos, Perez had learned his lesson. After seeing Barcelona win the sextuple, beating Real Madrid to La Liga by 9 points, Perez realized it was time again to assemble the Avengers. Although they had success in the league, winning La Liga in 2008 and the Supercopa de España in the beginning of the 2009 season, they were awful in the Champions League. I know that's hard to believe since they've absolutely dominated the competition, but their loss to Liverpool marked the 5th successive season of early Champions League exits in the round of 16. They hadn't made it to a quarterfinal since 2004. To get back to winning ways, Real Madrid signed Kaká, Benzema, Ronaldo, and Xabi Alonso. Big names, but in a variety of positions, not just all attackers. But of course, in the first season, it was another trophyless one. They lost 4-0 in the Copa del Rey and then got knocked out for the 6th consecutive year in the round of 16 of the Champions League to Lyon. This second version of Galácticos needed more time to gel, and even then, they didn't really start tasting success until Jose Mourinho. Mourinho changed the mentality of the club, but on top of the managerial change, it was actually the signing of Modric in 2012, Bale in 2013, and Kroos in 2014 that led to Madrid dominating Europe. They won Champions League after Champions League from 2014 to 2018. Kroos and Modric, along with Casemiro, were essential to those teams. They added balance and control to the midfield. Of course, we can't forget Ronaldo's goals and Bale's big moments, but Ronaldo was scoring before their arrival, and Madrid kept losing. And even after he left, he kept scoring Champions League goals for Juventus, but he didn't win anything. Meanwhile, Modric and Kroos won 2 more Champions Leagues. You have to have creative midfielders that can dictate the tempo of the game, that can control the speed of matches. That's the problem the current version of the Galácticos are facing. Nobody is there to replace Kroos. Now, of course, a player of his caliber can never truly be replicated, but they have to at least look for a profile of a player close to him. Right now, players like Valverde, Camavinga, even Bellingham, these guys cannot control the tempo of a game. They can't break the lines with passing. They don't offer that control. I mean, Modric can do it, but the guy's almost 40. That's too much responsibility for him to keep playing every game for 90 minutes. For a period of time during the season, Ceballos was actually doing that role well, and Madrid, as a team, were actually playing better. What a shocker. When you have a central midfielder that can dictate the tempo and control possession, you have more control. But he ended up getting injured, which left Madrid in the same position as before. I actually feel that Arda Güler can do the same role, but Carlo just doesn't want to play him for some reason. Most likely because he didn't want to drop one of the big guys. The same issue we were seeing with Carlos Queiroz with the first version of the Galácticos. When Ancelotti did play Güler, he played him on the right wing, which is just not his best position. He does not have the pace and power to be a winger for Real Madrid. He's a number 10, like Ozil, which to be honest makes Güler's decision to join Madrid look a little weird. He knows that that is a club that doesn't play with a natural attacking midfielder. That's why James Rodriguez never made it. The other person that is definitely not blameless here is Carlo Ancelotti. He did a really good job in 2024 considering the amount of injuries the team had and the fact that they didn't have a natural 9. But the team has enough talent right now to be playing much better. Yes, the recruiting hasn't been the best, but spamming crosses against Arsenal when at one point your striker was Endrick, who's like 5'6", is inexcusable. He also just doesn't like rotating the team or giving the youth a chance. Asensio was a great story for Madristas, a player coming through the youth academy and starting for the first team. But realistically, he only got the opportunity because Ancelotti literally didn't have another choice. They had no more center backs fit. In normal circumstances, Carlo would never give this guy an opportunity, and it would be a shame because he's actually been one of the better players on the team. Endrick at one point had less minutes in La Liga than Bernal. Yes, the Barca youngster who tore his ACL right in the beginning of the season. The team had found some success with Valverde as the right back, yet Ancelotti still kept using Vasquez. Against Arsenal, Real Madrid had all these superstars, yet I was watching Lord Vasquez spam long shots over and over again. As great as Ancelotti has been throughout his career, let's just say there is a reason why this guy has so few league titles across decades of managing, despite the fact that he has had some great teams under his management. He's a great manager when it comes to man management and handling the ego of superstars, but his free-flowing football, where he just lets the stars do their thing, isn't working. And when Ancelotti's style doesn't work, the play looks awful. Because even at their best, the play isn't necessarily the best football, but it was getting results. What's What's funny is that this third version of Galacticos was supposed to be the scariest of them all. When Ronaldo and all those other stars joined Madrid, it was supposed to be a rebuild in 2009. They had done well in the league, but they didn't have that fear factor or success in Europe. Then the first version of the Galacticos, you could argue they were players that were closer to the back end of their careers than their primes. Like Beckham wasn't the same guy we saw at United, R9 was on his way down. Mbappé, on the other hand, was joining a young Madrid team, a core made up of players young enough to keep getting better, but good enough that they were winning now. They had just won the Champions League and La Liga. In fact, the majority of the players at the club were still there when they won the Champions League in 2022. This wasn't a rebuild project like 2009 or an older core of players like 2003. Yet so far, it's been underwhelming. Whether it's a change in manager or recruitment, I'm sure Madrid will figure it out. There's too much quality for them to not find a solution. But I will say they have to figure it out quick, because it seems like Barcelona have the blueprint to defeating Galacticos. The first set of Galacticos were defeated by Ronaldinho, Eto'o, along with a young Xavi and Iniesta. What Barca do is they recruit well and then they combine it with their youth development from La Masia. It's the perfect formula for defeating an army that has more money than you. Then the second version of the Galacticos were stopped by Messi, Xavi and Iniesta as the face of the squad. Thankfully, Madrid dominated the Champions League, or the second version would have also been seen as a failure since they didn't win that many league titles. But that formula that Barcelona have, well, they're using the exact same thing against the third version of the Galacticos. Good signings from before, like Lewandowski and Rafinha, are being combined with the development of youth players like Yamal, Cubarsí, and Casado as they destroy Perez's star-studded army. In fact, the 4-0 win in El Clasico seems very reminiscent of the El Clasicos we saw in 2009 and 2011 under Pep. It's still very early days though. I'm sure Real Madrid can gel together and they'll find a way of managing the egos. I mean, this isn't the first time that there's a lot of star quality in those Real Madrid locker rooms. But man, imagine if this team had prime Modric instead of 40-year-old Modric. To see just how good the Croatian was in his prime, you have to check out this video right here.